Oh, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. At least there is a meeting. Can you flag the agenda, Nosipo? There is the agenda. Uyizumile wena Nosipho man, ivela half.
Ivela half.
Hayi khona nje iyabonala kawufela.
Ko wena nje ke ibonala ko wena nakusayisa bonela sikali hayi khona. Nakibona akibona opening and welcoming yafela. Observe moment of silence yafela. Briefing by the department yafela. Financial institution yafela. I mean, so ibona la
Comrade, put your phone on a landscape. We can see the agenda.
Even though him sharing meeting, shoot meeting is wrong.
Yes, you must see because you are the driver.
Okay. Thanks, colleagues. I'm sure let us try to use the time that we have. Okay. Let me open the meeting and welcome everybody into the meeting. Hoping that we will all, okay, it's me who's struggling with the phone. Remember, I can't operate a landscape but welcome all of you. The meeting is still opened. Let's observe the moment of silence for meditation and of prayer. Thank you very much. Apologies.
Morning, Chairperson. There is no apology from the committee members, but there is one from the office of Mama Gadzi. She is not well, so she won't be attending this meeting. That is all, Chairperson.
Okay. Any other person does that? If there is no apologies, can we move to the fourth item on the agenda? Briefing by the department.
Good morning, Chair. My hand is up.
Where is that? Kimango, Honorable Madi, or Memio?
No, Chair, it's not Madi. Memio, Chair. Chair, I will be traveling. My apologies, just in case. Kata before the end of the meeting. I'm traveling, and if meeting was right, at least before 12, I'll be able to stay. But after 12, I'll just have to leave the meeting, Chair. That's my request.
Yeah, we have got one item. Let's try to finish it in time.
And I move for the adoption, Chair.
Okay.
I move for the adoption, Chair.
The adoption is moved.
Adoption is supported.
Thank you very much. Minister, we are in your hands.
Thank you very much, Chair, and the members of the
portfolio committee. And dear Mahlavo and officials that are here. Just briefly, the current priority or priorities on our side is to ensure that in the next 2 years or so, we have all the securities, water securities that are necessary to cover us as a country via provision of water or availability of water, not only at a national level, but yes, at a national level via security at municipal, at district and metro levels. There are various schemes that we are busy with. This is something that we have said before, but we're making progress. First one is Lesotho Highlands Water Project, phase 2. I think we're now 2 weeks, we're left with 2 weeks to revert to Namibia or them coming back to us, clarifying their position in relation to writing a letter of no objection. And that will see the beginning of phase 2 with the Lesotho political situation stabilizing. And we're waiting for the announcements of cabinet, and then we resume our discussion. And Mkomazi, we've finalized the offtake, and municipalities are busy with consultations that will lead to signing of the offtakes. And on the other hand, making sure we're ready for funding, with funding to start the project. On Thursday, we will be launching a partnership which will see us partnering with a number of mines in Limpopo via Libalelo, and it's a 50-50 partnership that will take water from De Hoop and from Flag Boshelo to the villages and up to Polokwane on both sides or both wings of this major project. We are moving well with regard to LOSCOP, Mudze scheme. That will also include Tembile Ani municipality and Moroka, JS Moroka. We are we are dealing with Western Cape via repositioning the water board, that is the overpack water board to cover the whole of the Western Cape, and from which a number of projects need to follow to cover people on water, while waiting for the beginning of the project to raise the wall of in the West Coast in February, and other projects. And of course, we are waiting for another last meeting with regard to Mzimvubu Dam. We've had the first round at more detailed planning with Treasury. They are finalizing their thinking on this matter, and following what we put to them, and then they will come back to us. I won't count all the projects in all the provinces, but we are that's what we're dealing with. The agency situation, that is National Water Resource Infrastructure Agency, we're making the progress with regard to the bill. And we are continuing with the main project of strengthening municipalities to provide water, which, as you know, is a area of work that has not been moving over a long time, resulting into current crisis-like situation in municipalities with relation to water services. All these demonstrations, all these complaints, and all of them come from the fact that it took us long to realize that municipalities were declining in terms of their capacity to do their job in relation to water and sanitation. It's a situation we've corrected and we're dealing with it to a point where increasingly, almost every week, we are making interventions of one kind or the other in municipalities in terms of providing water. The project we are launching, the partnership and the project, was on Thursday, we'll be launching both the partnership and the first project on the Duo Polokwane situation, will cover 96 villages plus 38 others, I think, on the West Wing, the Mkalakwana area, all of whom have not been covered with water in terms of services, not just security, but services as well. It's going to take a few years implementing or rolling out this project, but ultimately it means we've started addressing water shortages in those areas. Now, and so we'll continue in small municipalities to do so, providing people with water. Of course, issues of pollution are driving us to incrementally address infrastructure. We have written letters as of this weekend to eThekwini municipality after we assessed why they are spilling over sewer so much into the river and so on. And we're dealing with that, and we will intervene in others as well. I must say that on the finance side, the department will cover us, and they will give us the report, give the portfolio committee the report of the second quarter, responding to the AG's challenges that she spelled out, and generally show that we are on our way to improvement following our commitment to doing so. I must finally deal with Gauteng water, which has been the talk of the town in the last couple of weeks. By and large, we are around 98% in terms of recovery following the intervention by the two factors. First factor was a major load shedding in the area of Gauteng, resulting into no or very less pumping into the reservoirs. This saw reservoirs almost going empty, and it caused a disruption in water provision in Gauteng metros. But there was also a coincidence of another intervention by the heat wave that hit Gauteng to a large extent, resulting to people reverting to piped water for watering their gardens, car washes, and other related water uses by water users. And all of this finally has caused a very low water provision, especially in high-lying areas And we had a meeting, we created a water room, and the stakeholders found one another, the municipalities and their entities, and Rand Water and ourselves. That room is still functional. We are 98 towards recovery. There may be some few places, but that are left out for now, and they're being addressed, but it is far from what it came to be. Now, I saw an article yesterday. It's an article, I think it's from the Daily Maverick. I don't think the fellow who wrote it understands the institutional arrangements, that if there's a problem of water in a particular suburb in Johannesburg or Tshwane, the institutional arrangements dictate that in the case of Johannesburg, the first respondent would have to be the municipality via their entity. You don't have a way of just jumping and fixing that. But next to that is the question whether they are receiving water at all from Rand Water or they are not. And then we come in there. These water stakeholders, water utilities and stakeholders, they are legitimately there. You can't just work as if they don't exist. And that's the first point that they don't understand. And the second point is that they don't want to recognize the fact that there was a heat wave and then there's load shedding, which by and large disturbs us to a large extent, and it's becoming quite a problem. So it's not like when there are water shortages, it's because there's no water in the dams. And some people are hard of hearing that, no, look, the Vaal River, the Vaal River Dam is full. And it's not so much about less pumping, but it is when it's hampered by, it becomes inconsistent, that is pumping into the metros, but they themselves, their pump stations won't be functional, and therefore it will disturb the whole chain. And that's what we need to understand. But at the moment, things are working well, and we think that very soon they will recover completely. Thank you very much, Chair. Let me leave it to the hand over to the department to do the rest of the reporting. Thank you very much. Alebo.
Dr. Phillips.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good morning, Minister, Deputy Ministers, honorable members. Let's go to slide 3, please, Joy. So the purpose of this presentation is to present, as we were requested to do, on progress with the financial and institutional turnaround plans to address challenges related to the water trading entity and strategies to address the audit outcomes identified by the AG in the 21-22 financial year. Next slide, please. The Minister has largely covered these strategic priorities of the department. The purpose of this slide is really to put this presentation in context. While this presentation focuses on institutional changes that we're introducing related to the water trading entity, the purpose of this slide is just to show that that's just one of many things that we're doing. Creating the National Water Resource Infrastructure Agency, for example, doesn't solve all the problems related to water and sanitation in the country, but it needs to be seen in the context of a range of other initiatives which are provided on this slide and which the Minister has largely spoken to. Next slide, please. So the first major institutional change that we're working on related to the water trading entity is the establishment of the National Water Resource Infrastructure Agency, which was mandated by the President in his 2022 SONA, who indicated that legislation has been prepared for the establishment of the agency and will be published for public comment. And that has now happened. Next slide, please. When the agency is established, it's going to be created by amalgamating or merging the current TCTA, or Trans-Caledon Tunnel Authority, which is an entity of DWS, parts of the infrastructure branch of the department, and the water trading entity, which is currently an internal entity within the department. We will also transfer all the ownership of all the national water resource assets to the agency, to the NWRIA. So all the dams and related infrastructure that we own as DWS will be, their ownership will be transferred to the NWRIA. So the NWRIA will become an institution which will own very substantial assets and will then have a substantial balance sheet. And that is one of the main aims of creating the NWRIA, to enable that institution with a very substantial balance sheet to raise finance on the market, because government doesn't have sufficient money from itself to invest in all the required national water resource infrastructure projects that are necessary for us to both rehabilitate and maintain the national water resource infrastructure, but also to develop new infrastructure so that water does not become a constraint to economic growth in future. The key difference is that currently the TCTA, because it doesn't have a substantial balance sheet, it doesn't own any physical assets, is only able to borrow money based on national treasury guarantees. So it is quite constrained with regard to the degree to which it can borrow money. And we're therefore not currently raising enough private sector finance to invest in national water resource infrastructure. That is the main motivation for creating the NWRIA. The further motivations include that in public management theory, there are arguments that it's better to separate the role of player and referee, so that the DWS will retain responsibility for planning of the national water resource sector, for its regulation and for policy development and price setting, while the NWRIA will finance, build, operate, and maintain the water resource assets. So we'll have some separation between policy development on the one hand and implementation on the other hand, and regulation on the one hand and implementation on the other hand. The other main rationale for establishing the NWRIA is that it results in a reduction in the number of entities in the national water sector, because we're going to amalgamate two entities, being the TCTA and the water trading entity, which is currently in the department, into only one entity, which is the NWRIA. Next slide, please. So the mandate and functions of the agency will be that it will implement water resource management infrastructure projects as identified in the planning done by DWS. It will raise finance for those projects. It will also be responsible for the rehabilitation, management, and maintenance of all the national water resource infrastructure assets. And it will also collect revenue from the sale of water, the function currently carried out by the WTE within the department. Next slide, please. This slide just gives an indication. The value of the raw water assets, as in this slide, that will be transferring to the NWRIA is 93 billion. You can say approximately 100 billion, which will give the NWRIA a very substantial balance sheet with revenues associated with those balance sheets. As indicated in this slide, the TCTA is only currently implementing 4 projects with 68 billion, but we hope that with the creation of the NWRIA and its substantial balance sheet, it will be able to finance a lot more projects than is currently done by the TCTA. Next slide, please. In fact, in terms of the modeling that we've done in preparation for the establishment of the NWRIA, we think that it could potentially result in the NWRIA being able to have three times as much projects going at any one time than the current TCTA projects. Next slide, please. We're also currently revising the raw water pricing strategy and updating it, and also making sure that it's more comprehensive and covers all the aspects that need to be covered where there are costs associated with providing raw water. So the revised raw water pricing strategy will include an operations and maintenance charge, depreciation, which will enable the NWRA to fund rehabilitation and maintenance, the future infrastructure build charge for the purpose of funding social and economic development, particularly where bulk water is used to provide water for social purposes, and a capital unit charge to fund government water schemes, which will be complemented through blended finance with money raised from the private sector. So this process of revising the raw water pricing strategy, which is now nearing finalization, is important to be done hand in hand or concurrently with the establishment of the NWRA, because the implementation of the revised raw water pricing strategy will increase the financial sustainability of the NWRA. So where we are currently is that we have the draft bill, and we also have a draft detailed business plan, which we've been through quite a number of iterations in discussion with National Treasury. We've submitted the draft business plan to National Treasury. It must be, in terms of the PFMA, it must be approved by the Minister of Finance before the NWRA is established. We're going to run the processes in parallel. So we're not going to ask the Minister of Finance to finally approve the business plan until it's nearing the end of its processing by Parliament as the bill. So we can check whether Parliament requires any changes to the bill, and we can then bring those changes into the business plan as well before the Minister of Finance concludes it. But in the meantime, we've been engaging frequently with National Treasury, and I think we have reached quite a high level of consensus with National Treasury regarding the business plan and its contents. In August of this year, Cabinet approved that the bill should be published for 90 days for public consultation. That was done on the 16th of September. So that process of public consultation is currently underway. And we're also in the middle of a process of consultation with affected stakeholders, which is taking place this month and next month. Once we've received all of those comments through the public consultation process, we will revise the bill and resubmit it to Cabinet for approval that it be sent to Parliament for processing. So the next slide, please. Our intention is that with the amalgamation of these different institutions, that staff from the department would be transferred in terms of Section 197 of the Labour Relations Act, and won't be any worse off post-transfer than they were beforehand. Next slide, please. We put in place certain key measures to manage the key risks. One of the questions that we're often asked when we talk about the establishment of the NWRA is, are we going to avoid the NWRA becoming another unsuccessful state-owned entity and another state-owned entity with many problems? In order to manage those risks, we've taken a couple of key measures. Firstly, we've put in the bill that National Treasury and the department must be represented at the board at an appropriate level, which will help both us and National Treasury to ensure that the entity is well governed. And it also provides for appropriate qualification and experience requirements, which must be considered by the minister when selecting board members. Secondly, in order to manage financial risks, the business plan makes it very clear that the NWRA must and will live within its means. In other words, it won't spend more than its borrowing and revenue allow. So it's important to note here that the creation of the NWRA in itself does not solve a key problem facing the water sector and threatening the financial sustainability of the water sector as a whole. And that is weak billing and revenue collection by municipalities. So the water sector is supposed to be self-financing. Municipalities are supposed to bill and collect revenue for all the water they provide to citizens and businesses. They are in turn supposed to pay the water boards and the department for the treated or raw water that they receive from the water boards or the department. When the NWRA is set up, it will sell water to the water boards and also directly to some municipalities and to large industrial consumers. And the NWRA needs to collect revenue from that. The NWRA is not going to be an entity which receives regular financing from the fiscus. Its model is to be self-financing. So it should do all its work based on its revenue streams and borrowing against its revenue streams. But for its success and its ability to do that depends in part on the degree to which municipalities, right at the bottom of the value chain, effectively bill and collect revenue. So the NWRA is not a solution to the problem that we currently face of many municipalities not doing very well in terms of billing and revenue collection. And we need other initiatives to address that. Indeed, we as DWS need, together with National Treasury and COGTA, need to do more to support and intervene at municipal level to ensure that municipal billing and revenue collection is improved. Next slide, please. This slide shows the roadmap for the establishment of the NWRA, and as indicated, a key milestone based on progress to date is that we intend to submit the bill to Parliament early next year. Next slide, please. The other major institutional reform that we're introducing related to the water trading entity is the establishment of catchment management agencies. The reason why this is related to the water trading entity is because the proto catchment management agencies which are currently operating in the department and those catchment management agencies that have been established are funded from revenue. So the proto CMAs in the department are funded from revenue raised by the department through the water trading entity. And I'd like to hand over to you, Stacia, to present 3 slides on the catchment management agencies, where we are, why we're creating them, before Frans comes in and presents on the financial and auditor general issues. Over to you, Stacia.
Thank you, DG. Good morning, Honourable Chair and Honourables. The catchment management agencies are established in terms of Chapter 7 of the National Water Act. They are statutory bodies and they're listed in the PFMA as a 3A entity. The main aim is to involve communities and local water users in water resource management. And they are there to promote equitable access to water, to meet the basic human needs, and to redress any past racial and gender discrimination, and to facilitate social and economic development. With this CMA establishment, the department still remains the custodian of national water resources. The department is still responsible for policy and regulation. And in the absence of no CMA, the department undertakes all these water resource management functions. Next slide. And the map indicates the 6 water management areas. The Breedig Olifants in Western Cape, the Mzimvubu Tsitsikama, the Pongola Mzimkulu, or Mtavuna water management areas, then the Val Orange and the Limpopo Olifants water management area, and the existing Inkamati Sutu water management area and CMA. The next slide, the main principles of realigning the water management areas and respectively the CMAs from 9 to 6 are for operational integration, integrated water resource planning, and economies of scale. In terms of operational integration, we want to ensure that there's connected and integrated water systems, that there's easy coordination and monitoring of agreements, and that there is improved capacity in terms of technical skills. In terms of water resource planning, we want to make sure that we manage and we plan for a system and improve resource planning and ensure that transboundary systems are managed by the same conventions. In terms of economies of scale, we want to enhance the revenue and hence the sustainability of the institutions and ultimately water resource management function to ensure that there is effectiveness and to consolidate management structures. Next slide, in terms of the progress of CMAs up to now, for the Breede Olifants water management area, the minister has signed the Gazette notice to establish the Breede Olifant CMA. So we will publish the Gazette as soon as we finalize some issues on personnel matters. The Val Orange has been gazetted for public comment in May 2022. We're busy with the consultations at the moment, and we are planning to gazette the establishment of the Catchment Management Agency in December 2022. The Pongola Mzimkhulu has been gazetted in 2014. We're in the process of appointing an advisory committee to look at and nominate board members for the minister's approval. And we should be finalized with that process by November 2022. The Limpopo Olifants, we are still busy with consultation process. We're hoping to gazette the establishment for public comment by November 2022. The Umzimvubu Tsutsukama, also it was gazetted for public consultation. We have reviewed and updated the business case, and we have started with internal and external consultation. We're actually using the pricing strategy consultation process, the review of the pricing strategy process to include the CMA consultation processes. And we hope to gazette the CMA by March 2023. In terms of the Inkamati Usutu, there will be no reconfiguration done. We are busy initiating the process of the appointment of the new board. Thank you, DG. And Franz?
Thanks. Thank you very much, Chairperson, Minister, DM, DG, and colleagues. I'll be taking the committee through part C of the presentation, that is financial turnaround plans, as well as strategies to address the issues raised by the Auditor General. Slide number 23, Chairperson provides a background on what led to the department developing financial turnaround plans. In the previous financial years, the department was under dire financial distress. This is mainly due to the issues around mandate between the department and water trading entity. Historically, we had some of the projects that were started by the water trading entity, which were outside the mandate as outlined by the DG earlier on. So over the years, I think 2017-18, we started the process of transferring those projects, the water services projects, including amongst others, one leaks from the water trading entity to the vote, the main account. So that created some relief for the agency where we had bank overdrafts and other challenges. And the other points simply provide the background around the establishment of the water trading entity in line with the Exchequer Act at that time. So I will then move over to the next slide. Slide number 24, which provides key elements of the financial recovery plan. We provide feedback to the portfolio committee on a quarterly basis on those financial turnaround plans, which also encompasses water trading entity. It covers issues around revenue collection, what we are doing to strengthen the collection of revenue, also issues of systems of internal control, liquidity, as well as the working capital management. In the previous financial years, the Auditor General raised concerns around going concern financial sustainability of the water trading entity. And we have made sure that we establish controls to manage the cash flow, also being aware of the service delivery imperatives towards we manage this cash flow requirement, including the budget control measures. On slide number 25, it's a continuation of the elements of this financial turnaround plans. As indicated there, debt collection is one of the key areas, but also there is a concerted effort to manage and ensure that the construction unit is sustainable. We are working very close with the Director General in making sure that this becomes an efficient unit as we move towards the future of the department and the agency. There's also a process of reviewing the business processes within the water training entity as well as the department to make sure that we deliver optimally within our mandate. On slide number 26, Chairperson provides financial highlights on the water training entity. The Director General already spoke about the need to ensure that we have an agency that will be able to have a strong balance sheet. This is a synopsis of the financial key financial items of the water training entity. The bank overdraft, as indicated, is favorable. I can confirm that in the year, if I'm not mistaken, 2017-18, there was an overdraft of 1.4 billion on this account. And over the years, we made sure that we do not fall foul of the acts by causing this account to be overdrawn. And we have maintained that over the years. The asset base, the DG spoke to those as well. We have trade receivables. I think that is where we have the challenges of recovering the historic accounts. And on property, plant and equipment, the DG spoke to those as well. That is the asset base of the trading entity. That includes as well the intangible asset in respect of the Lesotho Highland, as well as the Komati Water Basin Authority project. So all in all, it adds up to the figure of 93 billion that DG indicated. We also have financial liabilities, which are administered through the TCTA. And this is one of the areas which is giving us a motivation that as we move towards the agency, we'll eliminate some of the processes that are duplicated between the agency as well as the water trading entity. For one to be able to account for this financial liabilities, one requires information from a TCTA. So quarterly, annually, I have to engage with the CFO of the TCTA to reconcile the financial models in order to present those figures to the Auditor General. So once we have combined the two, so there will be one center where this will be managed. The regular expenditure, we also provide a regular feedback to the portfolio committee on the measures that we are taking to prevent this, also to deal with the backlog that is done on a quarterly basis. We can move to the next slide. The next slide, Chairperson, slide number 27, is the highlights on the main account. The reason for bringing that is that the state guarantees on these loans of TCTA water trading entity are reported on the department. So the amounts that are reflected there as contingent liabilities, they relates to those guarantees, and the guarantor institutions includes, amongst others, the TCTA as well as COBWA. The other information is the information that we also give to the portfolio committee on a quarterly basis around the progress we're making to ensure financial sustainability also on the vote. The last part of the presentation, moving to slide number 29, is the strategies to address issues that were raised by the Auditor General in the 21-22 financial year as requested by the portfolio committee. Both the main account, the vote, as well as the water trading received unqualified audit opinions with findings, and the department has put together detailed action plans to make sure that we address the root causes of those findings that have been raised by the Auditor General. We're also putting in place the preventative measures. We're implementing a number of them: awareness, staff training and development, consequence management, to make sure that we all account for our actions, but also to make sure that we deter some of the officials from incurring future improper expenditure. Another area where we are really doing quite well is the engagement with the Office of the Accountant General and the Auditor General to prevent those instances of late disagreements during the signing of the audit. The next slide, Chairperson, those are the key audit findings that were raised by the Auditor General on slide number 30. On the water trading entity, there is an issue that was raised around the contingent asset that relates to the royalties, Lesotho. Those issues we have been dealing with over the years, and I can confirm that there's a dedicated team that has been established to finalize the recalculations of the royalties which have been queried by the Auditor General. And the date that we have put for ourselves is that by 31st March, we should be done with all those recalculations so that we are able to meet the audit requirements and also the accounting requirements to disclose those figures as we close the financial year. Another area that was raised on the water trading entity relate to the material impairments. Those are linked to the debtors that we have raised in our books. We do have incentive schemes where we're encouraging customers to settle their capital balance within a reasonable period, and the department through the water trading entity will then waive interest. Through IGR as well, we are continuing to be together with the SALGA as well as COCTA and National Treasury to deal with the multidisciplinary revenue committee issues. And we have also a chairperson. I can confirm that we have 30 debt collectors who are assisting us with the collection of the debtors within the water trading entity. On the main account, the vote issues raised related to the underspending of the vote. We have put various measures in place, Chairperson, which includes, amongst others, the alignment of the APP, the budget, the procurement plans. We are also busy with the implementation of the infrastructure procurement policy, which is going to help us to manage the procurement of the infrastructure within the main account as well as the water trading entity. We can move to the next slide. The other issue raised by the Auditor General, which we are addressing, relates to the annual financial statements, expenditure management, procurement and contract management, consequence management, and internal control deficiencies. Those issues, Chairperson, we are dealing with them through those actions and progress as reflected on slide number 31. And we do have detailed action plans, which we are monitoring through our audit committee, as well as risk management committee, but also reporting to the accounting officer with the progress that we are making on those findings. The next slide deals with the other category of the findings which the Auditor General has raised. Those are material irregularities. One relates to payment not made within 30 days, resulting in additional interest. Investigation was conducted in line with the approval by the accounting officer, and it recommended that we recover the funds from the former officials, and the attorney has been engaged to ensure that those officials do pay back the amount owed to the department. The second material irregularity, also on the water trading entity, relates to the amounts paid to a contractor for site establishment cost and standing time. There as well, the account officer did ensure that investigation is taking place. It did take place, and recommendations were made. We have put together an action plan to ensure that we implement those recommendations. We are now having the financial manager who has been appointed to implement the recommended systems of internal control. And we've also referred the issues to the labor relations unit, who are busy with the implementation of disciplinary proceedings in respect of the identified officials. And the project as well is nearing completion, and the accounting officer is monitoring the implementation of those milestones to ensure that we do not delay further on the implementation of the project. On the main account, the material irregularity that was raised by the Auditor General relates to payment that was made to a consulting firm without evidence of work performed. That relates to the period 2017-18 financial year. And also on that, I can confirm that disciplinary proceedings were instituted against the responsible officials. Some left the department, and one official is still within the public service, and the department is continuing with disciplinary proceedings with the other department. And hearings did take place as indicated on the on slide number 32. And further, that the matter was reported to the police and is currently before the High Court to seek to recover those funds which were paid to the firm. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Bamkunu, are you sure that we must now can engage? Is the minister gone? Okay. Masawa, are you here?
We're done with the presentation, Chair. We can be guided by yourselves. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think we have had the presentation very loud and clear. It is straightforward, very informative and to the point. Though, Masawa and Bamkunu, I think you are still in the podium. Dr. Phillips, I want to request that sometimes when we present, we must have proofread the tenses of writing. For instance, your past, present, and future achievement should be written in that format that it tells you whether this is done, this is being done, this is to be done. I mean, for instance, if you say we are going to achieve what we are doing on the 22nd of August 2022, and this is November 2022, it's a wrong tense because it must say that we have done it in August, like we've already done in the 90 days process by September. It must talk like that. And it's not a general phenomenon. Most of the time the tenses are right, but there are still places where the tenses are not necessarily linked to where you are. But where I'm sitting, I'm sure the report is clear. Bamkunu and Bamatobo, if you are still present, Bamkunu, that on behalf of the committee, I want to ask that sometimes when you do these big launches, that is going to be a very good progress for the country. Do inform the committee for the committee to can bless the launch by attending whoever can afford. But I'm not saying it must, if they must attend, but I think if you can just tell us, for instance, you're going to Limpopo, we are going to Limpopo this weekend. You're also going to go to Limpopo to launch a big project. Could you have known, we could have linked our presence in Limpopo to part and parcel of the launch and so forth and so on. If we can just be told in time, I think as the committee, we can also arrange you must never be seen to be a lone hunter, as if the committee does not support programs that you are doing. With that being said,
Thanks, Chair. We note it. We'll humbly correct it.
Yeah. Members, I want to allow you to raise your hands if you want to engage the report. And there is nothing wrong in you raising your hand and say the report is adopted and we close the meeting.
Do you recognize my hand today?
If it is raised, it is not raised yet. I see the hand of Meg Grace Seke is raised. Raise yours. It will be recognized.
There's a gesture in my hand. You know a gesture?
I can see you are speaking because it shows it lights, but it is not raising your hand. That's okay?
Okay.
Oh, Chair, thank you very much, and good morning to your good self, the minister, the DM, and the DG and the entourage. Before we accept this report or note this report, Chair, just one or two comments or questions that I want to raise. With regard to the realignment of the CMAs, I see the department has taken an approach of one CMA, one province. But with regard to the three provinces, your Northwest, your Gauteng, and your Northern Cape, I think Val Orange will be tasked to deal with the three provinces, but I don't get the rationale why. Because Northwest, yes, it's big. Northern Cape, yes, it's a bit smaller, and Gauteng with its own challenges. Why are we assigning one CMA to deal with the three provinces, whereas others it's one CMA, one province? And secondly, Chair, on the issue of the no objection letter, as it was raised by the minister, you know, this has been highlighted in our oversight last year in November, that the no objection letter from Namibia is posing a high risk to this phase 2 of the Lesotho Highlands. Because it means that we will never receive any funding from or secure funding for this phase 2 project. But it was raised, I know it was captured in our report last year in May or in June, 27th of June, when we are adopting this report. Why is it taking that long to address this matter, Chair? I think those are my questions. Thank you.
Ma'am Nancy?
Thank you, Chair.
You are regressing. You get 100%, then you go back to 20% at class.
I'll be okay at last. Maybe there's a gestir. Do you know a gestir on my hand in the icon?
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. In appreciating the report, I think this report is taking us to somewhere, Chair, as it identifies all the gaps that we have and try to really establish a management strategy in terms of how best can we perform. I was worried when I listened to the DG about that NWRIA establishment. But as he presents, I understood that it's a structure that attempts to pull other agencies, entities that we have to be in one center for better management. So because the fragmentation of all of them could cause a weakness in the department. I'm happy with the explanation that is made in the presentation. Thank you, Honorable Minister, about that we need to await a detailed umzimvubu progress to date. This has caused an anxiety to many people, and we are unable to talk about it. I'm happy that there's going to be such a presentation that is going to detail the whole issue. Honorable Minister, I perhaps you maybe you need to can teach us better about what makes municipalities not to understand their role. I hear that you have an understanding about how they should do their work, but what makes them not to understand their historic role are the changes in their roles in their water service authority, is district and metros. What has happened? in that process, because I find that national department is now a messiah of everything. The two questions that I need clarities about, others were just comments, Chair. I could not get well the turnaround in terms of the groundwater infrastructure. I may have lost in the presentation. I didn't understand where does it fall. If I could get a clarity. And the other issue, can you clarify more the issue of the war on leak mandate? What is that paragraph saying? Sometimes English loses you in trying to understand. I'm happy with because the minister is saying that we will have a process to really address the issues raised by Treasury and AG. There's an issue that didn't sound well, DM, that the 6 water board that we have are inefficient. And they have been like that for some time. I wish that interpretation could be well understood. And what does that mean? And how best can we correct that view from the Treasury? I was trying to get it here in this presentation as I was reading it before the meeting. I couldn't get it well. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chairperson.
I heard you. I thank you, Mom Sway. Just in passing, DG, but meaning it. In the process of, for instance, in most of the time, not only our department, all the departments, even the entities and even the commissions of that normally get created, we do award to officials that they must repay the money used. Is that just a statement, or is it something you're going to do? For instance, if an employee in your department has misappropriated or misused or allowed or enabled a misappropriation of funds of 10 million, and he is a junior employee, and you're saying you're going to recover that 10 million rand from him, is it because a study has been made that that 10 million he has, or it's just a statement because that official might not even have 1 million rand in the account? Where will you get the 10 million if you're saying you're going to recover from him? If it is not a political statement, it is a meaning that you really do want to get that money. As I'm saying, it's a question that I'm asking for interest sake and for growth purposes. I do not see any other hand on the podium. Let's try to answer those that are asked Minister Mkunu, Deputy Minister Mashobo, and DG Phillips.
Thank you, Chairperson. DM, shall I go first?
Yeah, DG, you can proceed with the team.
Thank you, DM. Perhaps if I can start with the issue of the Namibian no objection letter. We do have a team which is engaging with a counterpart team in Namibia on a regular basis. There are a number of studies that have been done about the impact of the Lesotho Highlands project phase 2 on the amount of water that will be in the Orange River going past Namibia and therefore available for use by Namibia. And there have been recommendations from that study, and we've been jointly doing those studies and sharing the results of those studies with our Namibian counterparts. The Namibians are very concerned that they don't want the construction of Lesotho Highlands phase 2 to reduce the amount of water available to them from the Orange River. The studies have been through various phases. There was initially a proposal on the table that a large dam should be built on the Orange River near Namibia. But later, the studies found out that that would have a detrimental effect on the ecosystem, on the estuary where the Orange River joins the ocean. And that is a very important estuary that has United Nations accredited status and is very important both for the environment and for tourism, for both Namibia and South Africa. So we've made a counter proposal to the Namibians recently where we proposed that we could build a smaller dam and then two smaller dams, which would not have the same impact on the estuary, one near Namibia and one further up on the Orange River. I went to Namibia a few weeks ago and met with my counterpart together with our team and their teams, and we tabled this proposal. They've recently written back to say it's progress, but they would like some more firm commitments. And so our minister is going to be responding soon, and we're hoping that the two ministers can get together and get closer to getting an agreement, which would result in us getting a no objection letter. Our minister's counterpart in Namibia has to get the Namibian cabinet's approval for it, so they have to go through that process. So in short, honourable member, the answer is that it's a very complex issue. We have been working on it some time with the Namibians. I think it's taking long because the Namibians understandably want firm commitments about it not the Lesotho Highlands Phase 2 not having a negative impact on the availability of water to them. And I think we are now drawing closer to a situation where hopefully we can get agreement. But I can assure the honourable member and other members that it's a major priority for the department, and that we are putting all the necessary effort and energy into it to bring it to resolution as rapidly as we can. On the issue, Honourable Chairperson, about public servants repaying money, we do have a process in place in the department where all cases of irregular and unauthorized and fruitless and wasteful are processed by our internal audit unit, which then makes recommendations to me as to what should be done about the cases, whether there should be consequence management or criminal action taken, etc. Some of the cases are much more simple than others. So, for example, some of the cases of fruitless and wasteful expenditure relate to officials booking accommodation and they're not going to they're not taking up their accommodation. So we incur the cost of the accommodation without getting any benefit, and that's fruitless and wasteful expenditure. In those simple cases, we are requiring the officials to pay back the money, and they can afford to pay back the money because it's not huge amounts of money. In the more complicated cases of irregular expenditure involving tens or even hundreds of millions of rand or even more, we are much more complicated cases. They often require forensic investigation, and where we find that officials have done things wrong, and the internal audit investigation recommends that they've done things which should result in charges, disciplinary charges being laid against them. We do so, and we go through the disciplinary processes. And then also those complex cases that can also result in civil claims, and also we go to the police in some cases and lay charges at the police, and we also collaborate with the SIU. So in short, Chairperson, the answer is our ability to retrieve funds from officials depends on the cases, but for quite a lot of the fruitless and wasteful expenditures, it's a large number of relatively small amounts, and those amounts we do recoup from the public servants. We do have a backlog of cases currently that we need to deal with, as we presented to SCOPA recently, but we do have plans in place to deal with the backlog, and we'll be able to deal with the backlog of the more simple cases fairly quickly. With regard to the realignment of the CMAs, Honourable Tseki, we don't have a policy of one CMA, one province. CMAs, the boundaries of the CMAs have no relationship to the provincial boundaries. The CMA's boundaries are based on natural catchment areas. There's natural catchment, but there's natural occurring boundaries to catchment areas. And there are we only have 6 catchment management agencies because there are 6 natural catchment management areas, and they are aligned to the catchment management areas. On the issue of turning around groundwater infrastructure, there's a close relationship between dysfunctional groundwater infrastructure and municipal non-performance, which Honourable Sikwai was talking about. Because groundwater is provided, the pumping up of groundwater is a local function. Many municipalities, communities that are supplied with groundwater are normally supplied through municipal owned and managed boreholes. And the poor maintenance and operation of those boreholes relates to the general poor performance of municipalities with regard to their water services function. However, the department also needs to improve its role with regard to groundwater management. And we've identified that together with the Minister and Deputy Minister, and we're in the process of improving our role. So, for example, we need to improve our regulation of the use of groundwater, and we need to make it much more effective and make sure that people don't abuse groundwater, and that people only use groundwater in terms of the existing licensing requirements. We also need to improve our regulation of whether or not whether or not groundwater is becoming polluted, and protect groundwater more. So groundwater is a major focus of us. For us, it's going to become increasingly important as we run out of additional surface water resources. So we need to look after it and protect it, and it's important for the department to strengthen its role in that regard, as well as for municipalities to improve their management and maintenance of their borehole infrastructure. On the War on Leaks mandate, honourable members, we have ended the War on Leaks program now. It's no longer continuing, but the mandate that it has was basically to recruit and train young people to do basic repairs, such as fixing leaking taps in households, to reduce the amount of water leaks, which is an important task, but it's not addressing the part of water leaks, one of the major part of water leaks, which is the leaks in the municipal distribution systems, which are often much more complex and difficult to fix because they are leaks in big pipes which are underground and which require much more capital investment to repair. The intention was for the trained young people to be employed by the municipalities for ongoing purposes, but unfortunately many municipalities haven't been able to employ many of the trainees. But we hope that the trainees are able to use their skills, even if they're not employed by municipalities, perhaps be employed by plumbing companies. Colleagues, I don't know if you would like to add, Michael, would you like to add anything about our recouping of money from officials? What I said, Michael?
Yes, DG, certainly the investigations, especially into fruitless and wasteful expenditure, are done to determine whether there's any willful, intent in incurring such fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and whether such should be recovered from any particular official. So that's in essence what the investigations are intended to do, so that we can recover that money and make sure that we don't then incur similar amounts in future. Thank you.
And Eustacia, would you like to add anything on the boundaries of the CMAs?
No, DG, I think you covered it. It's the CMAs are based on their hydrological boundaries, and I think you've covered it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. DM, can I hand over to you if you would like to add?
Chair and members and DG, the team has covered the issues, Chair and honorable members. What will happen is that we'll work on the what do you call it, the typo issues going forward, especially just to keep a close eye if a date has passed, to give a clear issue whether there's progress or no progress. But other than that, Chair, that's our response. And we think we're on the right track with the support that you have given and oversight. But generally, we're not out of the woods around the water situation. And as Minister addressed earlier on, we are becoming a sharper focus because in the main, the impact of load shedding, we can feel it now. And secondly, the impact that as a country, we've done well to expand access to infrastructure for water. But our mistake and the misstep as people in this government of the neglect in terms of the existing infrastructure, because population has grown, the GDP has grown, and we're starting to feel the pressure. But you could see our intervention, what they are meant to do to improve our management in a proactive way. And then probably we'll also have to work very hard around the other spheres because the local government sphere need to be supported. They need to come to the party so that at least we're able to respond. And we have that capacity that we could do well. Thank you very much, Chair and members.
Thank you very much, Minister and the DG. I've got no other hand. Nosipo, can you fly the agenda? Where are we now?
Closing remarks. Ms. Tseke's hand is up, Chairperson, and after that is closing remarks.
Why is under second? Okay, there it is. Tseke.
Chair?
And Mashlai's hand is up.
Mashlai, but I'm Sandra Sako, man.
Nasi, Nasi.
Okay. Tseke and Sutwaya, Sandra Sako, but it's okay. I can see there is something you're doing. It lights green, but your hand is not up. But it's fine.
We'll get closing.
Oh, thanks.
Minister was all clean away.
Thank you.
Niggas is try. We're supposed to mom say, we say, I can minister. Try.
Chair, just one question. Maybe it's the lack of understanding. Is the catchment areas mean wetlands and canals? In our areas, we do have such, we may be interpreting it differently, but it's the same thing. That's one question that I wanted to get clarity, Chair. Thank you.
Supunga ujonga ngale kwesosi.
Aliva.
Supunga ujonge ngapha kwesosi.
Mandincedwe sihlalo sami.
Tseke.
Oh, thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, I wanted to make a follow-up on that CMA's issue because I think the department is giving us a high-level explanation. I think we are members of Parliament. We want to get it clear. We want to know it better. Make me to understand DG better than how you're explaining it now. Your hydrological boundaries, just make me to understand it in a simple or simpler language maybe. And secondly, my question, Chair, the special tribunal has ordered that software company, your SAP, to repay an amount of more than 81 million. I just want to check whether that money Is it going directly to the department if they repay it, or to the National Treasury? And if it goes to the department, what will be the purpose? What is the purpose for? Yeah, Chair, thanks very much.
Singabonga Baba Mkulu. Baba Mkulu.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a few things. The first one is the role of municipalities in relation to reticulation. I just want to make a remark that says we legislatively, in terms of them being water services authorities and expected to deliver water as a responsibility of the local government sphere of government, we really are not contesting that. We want to leave them with that kind of a situation and responsibility. But where the problem is when they don't do it, either because they don't have capacity or they lack management to do that, or there are many smaller factors that could account for that. It could be vacancies, it could be whatever. So we don't want to delve in that. We just want to assess whether the municipality is performing their duties as a water service authority or not, and how big is the problem or how small is the problem. If the problem is small, we work with them, strengthen their hand, give them direction down on the ground, just like we are now doing in Sanitation. They were not performing, not at all. It's not a question of so much not having money. If you look at what has been happening in years, getting all grants, but it's more, it's more their own problem of just kind of inability to do work. So we come in there, we assess, we point at infrastructure, we point at spillages, we point at, and then we go and sit with them, and then we start saying, this is what needs to be done, and this is the money that is required, and this is the money that you have, and this is the difference that you don't have. And then we agree that by February, all processes via Khartsibande will have been completed and they will be on the ground. This is how we intervene. But in some cases, even though I was told a little bit in relation to Mkhanyakude, we should by now, we should be very far by now. But I think there's a lot of toing and froing at officials levels, whether you're talking about our own head office or you're talking about the board. In that place, we are not where we should be by now. We're hampered by officials. But all I'm saying is that in the main, when we look at Mkhanyakude, the reasons why we wanted to intervene, it was because historically they are not delivering water. They get grants, but they use too little of those grants to provide water. And as the years go by, water services gets left behind, but they are not behind in terms of receiving grants, and we're not behind in terms of the water demand. Those are expenditure and water demand very high, but water delivery left very much behind. So we're intervening in that space. Another example, Machabeng, I don't know, many examples. We were in Kiani, but in Kiani, we're not just delivering bulk water from Nandoni. We've had to say, no, refurbish this plant and then start work procure for reticulation to all these villages, we have to be there, warm bodies, in order to get it to happen and to happen correctly. If you withdraw from supervising their own processes of procurement, you are not physically there via an official of one kind or the other. It won't happen. If it happens, it will happen improperly, such that there will be litigation and you to and fro. In low scope, Motse, we go there, we set up a steering committee. We say, after a month or two, where is this? And then we get a report. No, we've procured, we have, and our own officials are participating there to make sure that we make progress. And indeed, we've made progress there. So it's such that we don't have space to say we're a National Department of Water, and then if the portfolio committee asks us, where is water in the 55 villages? You are not going to ask us questions like, where is bulk water going to Nzame Dam? Because that is about to be completed anyway. You are going to ask us, why are people without water there? It's difficult for us to point at Mopane and say, ask Mopane, not us. In Nandon itself, we also can't say ask Vembe, because we go there, communities say, they've had meetings, 5 meetings with the municipality there, and they say they don't have an answer and they don't have water. And so we're in once more there to say, Vembe, what has been preventing you to deliver water in 7 villages? In that meeting, for instance, they were saying, yeah, Minister, you must remember, this is not the only village that is short of water. There are 7 others. And then I say, okay, of the 7, which ones have you serviced with water? They say none. And that's very painful. So you can't just turn your head the other way. You've got to be there. You've got to make sure that you say, but here is a grant. Here there was a grant last financial, and another one in that, and another. How did you use these grants? Very often they are unable to point at something concrete and tangible. So it is a practical and pragmatic situation or space that we find ourselves in. And as I said, Thursday we're in Beckersford. There are 96 villages. They've never received water. And what are we going to do? We're going to say we're supplying this bulk that is going to go through those communities up to Polokwane. And if we just leave it like that, we're sure they won't get water. We are going to have to work with Skukuni to say, all right, now that the pipe is coming, how are you preparing to get water from this bulk that is going to pass through to Polokwane? And we need plans, we need time frame, we need money for that. And we're going to have to sit down with them, plan with them, and so on. So I'm taking time, Chair, to explain how these things practically, the legal framework, legislative framework says something which all of us want to comply with. But in practice, that legislative framework doesn't deliver because they need warm bodies to deliver. It requires warm bodies, and it doesn't happen, including in the Gauteng metros. They know they're leaking water. At Teguen, they know they're leaking water. Up to 52% now. This is reality at Teguen. And I've got the recent report that they themselves have written. Leaking water, and they're saying it's a far cry from, if you look at the money that we are paying Umgeni Water for water that they are delivering to us, and the money that we are paying, as opposed to money that we are getting back, collecting, but also water that we are delivering. So it's an unsustainable situation. We've got to come in there via a meeting. And in KZN, and almost all districts are hamstrung. They are writing us and so. So it's a practical situation. Let me leave that. In Namibia, I think DG covered that. It was detailing and a lot of misunderstanding, which I think is now streamlined, and they were waiting for just that end of the period that they said they required to wait and must give them. And then we'll be going there to the CMA thing is, we can answer that maybe in the next meeting, but it's more about not spending too much about the proliferation of CMAs, but at the same time getting work done. And then you have to consolidate them like the Vaal and Orange. And they themselves were saying, why don't you consolidate us into one and oversee the whole of this area and so on. Thank you very much.
Minister, the two members are asking the synonym of the 6 catchment areas. What is it? This is asking whether it is the wetland, whether it is the canal. What makes it only to be in 6, not in 9? In their view, it will be provincially aligned, but they hear you that it must not be. They want to know why. What is the synonym of those things that they're asking?
Well, we would wish that they follow provincial boundaries, but in practice, it doesn't often all the time coincide in that particular way. Via waterways, you have to follow waterways, and you have to follow some kind of how the sectors themselves on the ground have organized themselves or are organizing themselves. And then you rather follow those synergies like water users associations, like farmer organizations, and so on. So it doesn't necessarily, there was a coincide all the time. There was a proposal from the department that, for instance, we take the whole of Upongola waterway right up to Usud, and you put it as part of Usud CMA. Why? Because Upongola, while it runs its course via KZN in the main, but when it gets to Usud, by the time it gets into Usud, it's in Mozambique and so on. Now, if you took that proposal, and then it would mean that because that CMA by and large is in Mpumalanga, then it would go that way, but it is not functional on the ground that way. So you follow waterways, but you also follow how sectors are organizing themselves. And we find that it's not necessarily unsynergized, as it were. Maybe we should come and make a presentation, a thorough presentation on this, and then point at what is it that we are talking to in practice. Water users on the other hand, and waterways on the other, and the association between the two, and how we follow, and what synergy those things will therefore follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I think we might have catched up with what you're saying. Thank you very much. I know that we had one item. Can I assume that the meeting has come to an end and you attend the meeting?
No, Chair. There's one question outstanding from
Which
me.
one is it? Which one is that?
The SAPS one, unless I missed it. The
Yeah,
SAP one, the 81 million, unless I
Kulungu,
missed it.
I hear you. I hear you. You're asking someone what was presented today. That's the problem.
Chairperson,
Chair.
We can answer that quickly. Franz can answer it.
yes, thank you very much, Chairperson. The funds that are recouped from SIU are paid back to the account revenue, and it forms a part of our reserve in the where the funds were initially taken from. So it goes directly into the water trading entity. We have done it with the first recovery, and we'll be doing the same with the one that Honorable Member is referring to now. Thank you.
Perhaps if I can just add to explain, Chairperson, the source of the money is that the SIU has been investigating the procurement of SAP licenses by the department, and the SIU has reached a settlement with the company involved that they will repay money to the department. We already received an initial amount of 400 odd million. And in that agreement, they said that some more detailed calculations would be done on this 81 million, and that has now since been resolved as well. So this 81 million needs to be added to the original 450 or so million that we were given. And these are all settlements between the SIU and the company involved, and the company has agreed that they actually didn't provide value to that amount, and they'll pay the money back to the department. The department paid them. But this settlement doesn't preclude the SIU can still proceed with criminal cases against individuals against who they have evidence against, and we are also still in the process of implementing and nearing finalization of disciplinary action related to the same case. Thank you, Chair.
Chair.
Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you very much. If there is any other that I'm not aware of, can you hear that before we close? None. The meeting stands adjourned. Thank you very much.
Viva Chair. Viva. Anbongwe.
Oh,